He stuttered for 13 years.
Whoa. Bring him up. She was in the choir. She was in the choir. Her glasses fell off. She could see. See what? See what? She's in the choir. Her glasses fell off. And now her eyes. What is the lie?
Cancer, Pastor.
Cancer.
Cancer. All the pain is gone.
God, the anointing. Holy, holy. What's going on there? Cancer, cancer. All the pain is gone. God, the anointing. You are. Pick him up.
Hey, shalom, shalom, Brother McQuash. Back on that scene, back on that YouTube scene, back on the Facebook scene, and my new page, Jacob Ladder. Sometime in my travels, I always run up on this subject, or run into this subject, rather, that the law is done away with. You got a lot of brothers and sisters in the Christian and Catholic faith who believe that the law is done away with, that Christ nailed it to the cross. Then you got Christian Jews or Christian Israelites who believe the laws is done away with, and they pretty much confused on this issue. And I always challenge them. I love challenging them, putting a challenge out toward them, because it gives me experience on how to deal with different angles as far as the topic. But here's a very basic understanding on wisdom, or scripture rather, showing that the law is not done away with. I always go to this verse, and maybe you brothers, you can add this particular breakdown in your arsenal when you're dealing with them. And like I always say, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, show me I'm wrong. So this is the book of Revelation, the 21st chapter, and we'll start at the 7th verse. And it says, he that overcometh shall inherit all things. Again, it says, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, meaning that brother or sister that overcomes things pertaining to the flesh, sin, wickedness, doubt, shall inherit all things, meaning the kingdom of heaven. And it says, and I will be his God, or his power rather, and he shall be my son. And that's what we all striving for. Even the Christians who are ignorant and have no understanding of scripture, even they trying to get into the kingdom. Everybody wants to get into the kingdom of heaven, but it must be according to scripture and what's written. Again, it says, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his power, and he shall be my son. 21st chapter, 8th verse. This is the main verse. It says, but the fearful, these are the ones that's not, that the Most High is going to have a problem with. Now, check out all these aspects. It says, but the fearful and unbelieving. So when you're fearful and unbelieving, you're going to break the Most High's laws. You're going to break his commandments. Again, it says, but the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable. See that? The abominable. It says, and the murderers and the whoremongers and the sorcerers and the idolaters and liars shall all have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So no one wants to be a part of the second death, but when you read the Bible, a lot of brothers and sisters in the nation of Israel, they're going to be a part of that fire and brimstone, that second death. Then you got a lot of heathens, they're going to be a part of that same fire and brimstone, and they're going to die in Judgment Day. Heathen meaning non-Jews, non-Israelites. The real Israelites are the so-called blacks and Hispanics of Negro and Indian descent. So let's take a look at this real quick. Now, the Christians teach that there's no more law. He teaches no more law. But let's deal with this word right here real quick. Sorcery. Or the sorcerers. Isn't that a part of the law? Isn't sorcery or being a sorcerer, isn't that in the law? Let's see if we can dig that up real quick. Because to my knowledge, a sorcerer, that's a wicked thing. To my knowledge, to be a sorcerer, that's an abominable thing. You know? So, you got a lot of Christians, they say that the law is done away with, but isn't that part of the law? Here's Exodus, the 7th chapter and 11th verse. It says, Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt, and they did in like manner with their enchantments. So that's against the law, where we are allowed to practice the customs and the witchcraft and the wickedness of the heathens, or the Egyptians rather. Are we allowed to do that? Or was the Most High against that? This is Daniel 2 verse 2. Then the king commanded all the magicians and the astrologers. You're not supposed to be in astrology. That's against the law. And the sorcerers. Here's sorcerers again. And the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king. So the Chaldeans, those were a heathenistic people outside of the nation of Israel. And they were in a practice that is against the law. It's against the law. So that has nothing to do with that. That's the Most High speaking about that second death that's going to follow brothers and sisters that break the commandments of the Most High. We're just dealing with just sorcery right there. You know, you understand? So sorcery is against the Most High. Let's go to the actual law. There's one right here, Leviticus, the 20th chapter. Let's go right there. Leviticus 20, verse 27. Leviticus 20, verse 27. And this is not hard, but the Christians, they so emotional and they so hypnotized by what the enemy has given them. They think that the law is done away with. But we're showing you the law is not done away with. It's just that we're supposed to keep the law with balance and understanding. We don't live like we're Pharisees or we're living in the Old Testament. There's balance. This is Leviticus 20, verse 27. It says, a man also, or a woman or a woman that has familiar spirits, or that is a wizard, shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones, and their blood shall be upon them. You see that? You see that? So isn't that the law? That looks like the law to me. That definitely looks like the law to me. So how do you explain that? If the law is done away with, how do you explain that? You can't explain that. The Most High is against sorcery and witchcraft. Let's get another one. Exodus, the 22nd chapter and the 18th verse. Let's go there real quick. It says, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. What does a witch indulge in? Sorcery. Sorcery. Doesn't a witch indulge in sorcery? So that seems like it's a law to me. So any form of witchcraft and familiar spirits, anything of that nature, is against the laws of the Most High, which the Most High said he's going to destroy those people who indulge in such practices in the New Testament. Let's go to the New Testament. Galatians 5, verse 20. Since we touched on the Old, Galatians, the 5th chapter and the 20. Very known chapter. It says, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, immolations, wrath, strife, sedition, heresies. 21st verse, envying, murders, drunkenness, reveling, and such like, of which I tell you before, as I also told you in times past, they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High. They that do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High. So those are all laws, and if you break any of those laws, you shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High. Revelations 20, verse 8 again. It says, but the fearful and the unbelieving. See that? The fearful and the unbelieving. So you got a lot of unbelievers and you got a lot of people that believe in lies. But the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable And the murderers and the whoremongers. You know what a whoremonger is, right? Someone who lies down with prostitutes and sleeps around. That's in the law. Thou shalt not kill, meaning murder. When you read the actual definition of the law written in the Old Testament, it says, "Thou shalt not murder." That's the law. And we just dealt with the sorcerers. See that? We just dealt with the sorcerers. So all these are laws. You understand? All these are laws that the Bible's talking about. So the Lord said, it says, but the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable and the murderers and the whoremongers and the sorcerers. So we just dealt with sorcerers. We just dealt with the sorcerers. So there's a law on sorcery. There's a law on sorcery. There's a law on witchcraft. In the Old Testament, we used to burn them, or the scripture said we used to burn them. You understand? But we don't do that in the New Testament. See, there's a difference. You got a lot of brothers saying that there's no difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. That's an unlearned brother. You got sisters saying that they're one of the same. That's an unlearned sister. They're not one of the same. You deal with the laws completely differently than you would have done in the Old Testament. But you're required to keep the laws, but with a sense of understanding and balance and mercy. But men will be judged on the laws. Women will be judged on the laws. So that word sorcery pertains to a law. If you break that law, you're going to receive the fire and brimstone. How about this? Abominable. See that? How about abominable? You familiar with that word? Abominable is a bad thing. Abominable is a filthy thing. And a lot of brothers are going to be judged on that too. You know, that's a filthy thing. You understand? How about this? Leviticus. Leviticus 20, verse 13. It says, if a man also lie with mankind, meaning two homosexuals, as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. See that? It's an abomination. See that? That's the law. So homosexuality fits in the category of abomination or something that's abominable. If a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death, their blood shall be upon them. And you got a lot of homosexual activities, laws, movies. They're pushing that so much that it almost seems like the norm. That's hot on the press. But they're making something that's abominable and that's against the commandments of the Most High. They're making it very normal today. Very normal today. Whereas the Most High, he's against that. He's against that. So the Most High said that's an abomination to deal with that. This is Leviticus. Isaiah 66 verse 15. Isaiah, the 66th chapter and the 15th verse, one of my favorites that I use. And the Christians, this always shuts them down. Oh, you don't know what that really means. That's talking about the stars and worshiping the stars. And they come up with all kind of personal opinions of what this means. But this is clear. This is clear. This is judgment day the Lord is talking about in the Old Testament. The same fire and brimstone we was reading about in the New Testament. It says, behold, the Lord will come with fire. See that? The Lord's come back with fire. It says, for behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind, meaning the Lord is going to come back with great power, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. And his rebuke with flames of fire. We read earlier about the fire. We read earlier. This back to Revelation 21 verse 8. It says, but the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and the murderers and the whoremongers and the sorcerers and the idolaters and the liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. The same fire. Same fire. Same exact fire. You understand? So how do you explain that? How do you explain that? The laws are still in effect. Still in effect. Here's another law. Leviticus 11, verse 7. It says, and the swine, though he divideth the hoof, and he be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you. See that? Dietary laws, which the church hate. The churches hate the dietary laws. The Christian Israelites, they hate the dietary laws. They say it's no more. Leviticus 11 verse 1, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying unto them, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts which ye shall eat among the beasts that are on the earth. So the Most High gave instructions on what we could eat and what we couldn't eat. He gave instructions. Not hard to figure out. 7th verse. And the swine, though he divided the hoof and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you. Of their flesh, see that? 8th verse. Of their flesh ye shall not eat, and their carcass ye shall not touch. They are unclean to you. You understand? Then the Lord goes into what you can eat in the water. It says, these shall ye eat these shall ye eat of all that are in the waters. Whatsoever has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, in the rivers, them ye shall eat. 10th verse. And all that have not fins, scales in the seas and in the rivers, and of all that move in the waters, and of any living things which is in the waters, shall be an abomination unto you. Check that out. Abomination again. 10th verse again. Leviticus 11 verse 10. It says, and all that have not fins. So a catfish has fins but no scales. But it says all that has fins and scales in the seas, in the rivers, and all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. So all that has not fins and scales are considered an abomination. I may have read that wrong earlier. So octopus, some of you like calamari, you want to get Italian, that's an abomination. Some of you like dolphin, a lot of Bajans, people from Barbados, they eat dolphin. A lot of people from the Caribbean, they eat shark. A lot of people from Europe, they eat shark. That's an abomination. You understand? Then you got shrimp, crab. You know, some people have, in the South, they have gumbo, which has all types of abominations in that meal. But I'm just showing you, the Lord said that it's an abomination. We read in the book of Leviticus about the abomination, that the Lord, he's against the abomination. We read that earlier, didn't we? We read that earlier. So the Lord, he's against that. See? Abomination. The Lord said, all that does not have fins of scale, you're not supposed to eat. It's an abomination. Revelations 21 verse 8 again, it says, but the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable. See that? Abominable. So pork is abominable. Shrimp is abominable. Catfish is abominable. Calamari, squid, shrimp, crab, lobster, all those that you spend your hard-earned money on, the Lord gonna kill you if you eat them things. They are considered abominations. They are abominable. But the fearful, unbelieving, and abominable, and murderers, and whoremongers, and sorcerers, and idolaters, and liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. The fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So you can't get around that. You can't get around that. That's very clear. Leviticus 20 verse 13 again, it says, if a man also lie with mankind as he layeth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. This is another abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Their blood shall be upon them. So homosexuality is an abomination. Back to Isaiah 66 verse 15. It says, for behold, the Lord will come with fire, same fire and brimstone we read about in Revelations. And with his chariots like a whirlwind, meaning the Most High is going to come back with thousands upon thousands of angels with great power, like a whirlwind with great power, to render his anger on the swine eaters, to render his anger on the shrimp and lobster and calamari eaters, squid eaters, dolphin eaters, shark eaters, dog eaters, cat eaters, to render his anger with fury on homosexuals and lesbians and gay marriages or gay unions, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. 16th verse, for by fire For by fire and with his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh. Don't matter if you're an Israelite or a heathen. He gonna plead with all flesh. And the slain of the Lord shall be many. 17th verse says, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the garden behind the tree in the midst, it says, in the midst, eating swine flesh and abomination. Again, it says, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the garden behind one tree in the midst, eating swine flesh and the abomination. I wonder what that abomination is. We just read it. But then it goes further. And the mouse shall be consumed together with, saith the Lord. See that? See that? Not hard to figure out. Eating swine flesh. Eating swine flesh and the abomination. We just read about the abomination. We just read about a few abominations. You can't get around that. You can't, Most High, it says, if a man also lie with mankind as he layeth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. All these are laws. So Leviticus 20 verse 13 is a law. Leviticus 11 verse 7 through 10, those are laws on what to eat. Understand? And the judgment in Isaiah 66 verse 15 through the 18th verse, I believe it was, pertains to the laws of eating unclean foods and those who have rebelled from the Most High through religions and wicked behavior. All these pertain to the laws of the Most High. All of them. They all pertain to the law of the Most High. Get around that. Get around that. If you can. But this is not hard to figure out. It's just if you're in your emotions, you're not you're gonna have a problem with it. You're gonna have a problem with it. If you caught up in your emotions, you will have a problem with it. You're gonna have a serious problem with it. Just let me see something real quick. Revelations 14 verse 12, it says, here is the patience of the saint. Here are they that keep the commandments of the Most High and the faith of Yahweh Shai, Christ. Again, it says, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of the Most High, which we just read, and the faith of Yahweh Shai. See, so there's a balance. There's a balance. You're not justified on the laws alone today. You're justified on the spirit and understanding and blood of Yahweh Shai. That's what you're justified on. You understand? The law is secondary, but men will be judged on the laws. They will be. So that's something I just was on a brother's mind. You brothers and sisters, you stay in the spirit, and you give that some thought. Shalom.